So I will go ahead and do the, I'm still getting my handle on Zoom and how all this works, so bear with me. There's several of you here. For those of you who don't know, I'm Brad Kloffenstein. I'm president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. And once a week, we are trying to get people from the community to come in and speak to chamber members and really anybody else who wants to be a part of the conversation. So this is going to be rather informal this week. We are honored to have the mayor of Lawrence, Steve Collier, with us. So he's going to say a few words and then be available to answer any questions you might have. So without further ado, Mayor, I will turn it over to you and let you share some pearls of wisdom.
I don't know how much wisdom I got, but I can share a few pearls with you. It's an odd time. You know, we have, I've never experienced anything like this in my 65 years. Never thought I'd experience something like this in my time as mayor, but it's on many levels, it has been very reassuring and reaffirming the city that we live in about some of the things we've had to do and some changes we've had to make and how people have been so willing to step up and to help each other out. It's very, like I said, it's very reaffirming of the human spirit. I got to tell you though, I don't want this to be our new normal. I'll be quite frank about that. I don't mind doing this for a while, ready to get back out and be able to be with people again. It's a pretty limited circle right now that we deal with, but I do want to catch up a little bit on what's the city, what we've done and how we've adjusted to it. First of all, as most of you know, I am exceedingly proud of my public safety, both fire and police and EMS and our dispatch people. And they have really stepped up to the challenge. We haven't had a single missed run. We've been out in the public every day. I'm happy to say that as of today, not a single police officer has tested positive for Corona, and that's a major accomplishment. Basically the same for our fire. At one point, we had 20 firefighters in quarantine. We did have one that's still off who tested positive. The good news is none of them have gotten real sick. Even the one that tested positive shows symptoms is in a part of recovery now. Part of that is that we were able to get out and get enough of the PPEs for our firefighters to keep themselves safe. We've been able to keep them supplied. I tell you, that have truly stepped up and been able to provide us with the hand sanitizer, the masks, the things that we were worried for a while we'd have enough, but we've had several companies that have, I'll name it to them and kind of give them a shout out here, but I'll keep it to a minimum here. But Mansfield King has been bringing in this hand sanitizer for us. They've done 3 deliveries of this. Cardinal Spirits, West Fork Distillery, both have given us sanitizer looks like this. So our police and our fire and even our civil people have sanitizer that we keep with us right now. Midwest Remediation right here in Lawrence came around and sanitized all of our fire stations in the government building. Sawney Solutions has bought meals for our police and our fire. Maddie Smiles have bought meals. Cato Foods provided food. Citywide came over and disinfected all of our ambulances, and those are a few. I said earlier about how reaffirming it was to see how people would step up in the city of Lawrence. And I knew we were like that, but it's such a great, I suppose, affirmation that we would step up and do the kinds of things that we're doing to help each other out. We've seen it throughout the city. And there are a couple of things that have been going on here just lately. Utilities, in case you don't know, but I want to make sure everybody knows that we have suspended all non-payment disconnections until this thing is over. We're no longer charging late fees for bills that are due. Mel Keaton has brought on a books and badges for the young people who are out there and are kind of bored. Chaplain Mel will read a book to them at least 2 or 3 times a week. I would encourage you, by the way, and this is something that sometimes I overlooked, that we do have a trustee's office here in Lawrence Township, and nearly every question that you might have if you are in need can be answered there at Lawrence Township Trustee. We do many of the same things the trustee's office does, but as far as one go-to source, we have to run the government over here, so very few of us are working. So trustees, Steve Talley can answer any of those questions for you right now. We are still in the essential staff mode. We have anywhere from 3 to 7 people working at the government center. Utility has, they rotate guys that are on call. Utility, if we have a water main break, we need to have people that'll go there and fix that, so they're on call. Same thing with DPW if we have emergencies. For example, last Thursday when the storms ran through, DPW called out all of its people to come out and help clean up the trees and the branches that have been blown down in that big storm. So when I tell you that we're on essential services only, what that means is that the people who don't need to be here on billboards are staying home. To my knowledge, we've had not a single civil employee that's tested positive for COVID. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, that we're going to be able to get through this. We did get a little bit of good news just last week, and this is really good news. We learned from the governor's office that we were able to get the full $1 million match. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. We got the full $1 million match for our Community Crossroads grant this year. So we'll be doing $2 million worth of paving in the city of Lawrence yet again this year. The good news is we already have the 5 projects picked out. And so they will be done as soon as we can get somebody contracted yet this spring. We just found out last Thursday, and you'll see me bragging about this, holding up a big check, and doing the story on it here before too long. But that was huge. We didn't think we'd get that level of matching funds this year. That makes in the last 4 years, that means we've gotten nearly about $5.2 million in total matching funds from the state of Indiana, and that's been huge for us. So I was texting Governor Holcomb that same day and thanking him for not only his leadership throughout this crisis. I think it's great having him and Dr. Fox on television every day helping us walk through this virus. I do think that there's one thing that I would tell everybody to understand, that no one really knows what's going to happen here. We have a way to model, and we are looking at models. I get updates every single morning on what's happening here in the city. I have a pretty good idea of where we think that we're going to peak at and where we think we'll begin to see the curve flattening. For those of you who don't already know, we're beginning to see that now. We did see a spike in deaths and cases over the weekend. That's to be expected. But we are beginning to see certainly it looks like we're going to see a flattening. What does that mean? Quite frankly, we're not going to be back normal for quite a while. We may see some very slow rolling out of some of the things we're able to do again. We may see some opening up of businesses happening in early May, but I would say that it'll probably be at least midsummer before we begin to see normal back certainly in central Indiana. I've been asked many times so far, are we going to still have the July 4th, the fireworks and the parade? And right now I'm saying I hope we do. I will be honest with you and tell you that probably it's in jeopardy right now. Everybody around us has already declared they're not going to have it. I'm going to hold off. I want to listen to the governor first and see what he has to say. I'll trust in him and his decision making. But right now, it looks to me like we won't be able to open up quite that much by the early July. Other than that, I mean, things are going along as they should be. I mean, it's a weird time to be the mayor. I got to tell you, I'm used to being with people nearly every minute of every day in some capacity. And I'm getting tired of talking with only Jason Fenwick or only Jim Hennigan or only Paul Warner. I love those guys, but I need to have some more people in here in the building with me. So I'm hoping by the end of this month, we'll be able to bring most staff back in place in the city of Lawrence. So any questions out there? No, come on.
Well, I will ask the first one, and you kind of briefly touched on it. What is your point of communication with the state of Indiana, and how often do they communicate with you on what's going on, and do they give you any advice, directives, anything like that?
Yeah, Brad, every morning we get an email from the governor's office. We'll get an update about what to expect that day coming in. I generally have a pretty idea what Governor is going to say before he says it in the afternoon. We have a pretty good model that we're using right now to be able to track what's happening across the state in certain areas of the state. We're here in Indianapolis, and so we're a hot spot in Indiana. That's not to be, shouldn't come as any surprise. Any of the population centers are suffering a number of cases. But I think the great news about Indianapolis is that we're not seeing the same level of virus, the same level of illness, the same number of deaths as other cities our size, particularly East Coast and moving in. I think part of that is because Governor Holcomb did get out and acted pretty quickly, on shutting things down. I feel, most of you know, I'm a retired teacher, and I really feel bad for the seniors here that are not going to have really a senior year because of the shutdown. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten about that, but these 17, 18-year-old kids that were looking forward to it was going to be the most fun 3 or 4 months of their lives, in terms of the education part of it, and they got shut down. And so no prom, none of the things that really are memorable of their senior year, not going to have. And so I've seen some unique ways of celebrating, and I think we'll see more of that as we get into May. But right now, those are the people I kind of feel the most sorry for right now. College kids, college seniors that are sent home early, won't get to say goodbye to some of their closest friends. So a lot of the impact on this shutdown is going to be long term. It's going to be, they're going to be feeling for quite some time. The city will certainly get through it. I will say this, that one of the best things about being able to get ourselves in pretty good financial shape is that these are the kinds of things that operating reserve is made for, get you through these times. All of us don't know, what our revenues will be this year. They'll be down, that for sure. How far down it will be, we really don't know. It appears as if we get out of this by the end of May, that while there will be some reduced revenues, it won't be devastating to any of the cities in town. So that was good news. We'll weather the storm here in Lawrence. We're going to be all right. Certainly would have rather not gone through it, but we're going to be all right.
Ross, I know that you had a question earlier.
The mayor answered it. I asked him about his community crossing award that the city was fortunate enough again to receive $1 million in community crossings. So that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was great news. That made my day.
I have a question, Pam.
Yep.
Do the different city mayors, like Indianapolis Speedway, do you guys talk, or are you just all taking your guidance from the governor?
The mayors talked to Marion County, Mayor Hogsett and myself, and Speedway's council president, Gary Rakes, is the person I talked to over there. Beech Grove, I've not heard from yet, but they're a fairly small city, as is Southport. But yeah, we have actually an aim. Essentially, it's a list, and mayors talk, and we'll ask questions of each other. How are you doing this? What are you doing in this situation? There's been a lot of that going on now. So many times we'll make a decision and we'll give it some thought, and we'll ask other mayors, what are you doing in this situation? And then we'll see what the consensus is and then move forward with it. So a lot of it is just, how are we going to react? For example, we had a problem here in Lawrence in the first week that some of our local restaurants didn't understand what a shutdown was supposed to be. And so we had to call and find out, we know these restaurants are staying open in defiance of the order, and there were several, as a matter of fact, in Marion County. But that can only be enforced by a statewide agency. So the local police we could be there as backup, but we couldn't enforce the actual closure. And so we actually talked to the governor and governor's people, said what should be the next step. And of course, we have an EOC that within Marion County, the EOC then will respond. If you see a restaurant that's open and direct disobedience to the order, then we call the EOC. They will send out essentially the excise police, and they will then go along with our police department, and we'll shut that place down. They can be fined on the first offense. On the second offense, it's highly likely that their license will be taken away. So it's a pretty good penalty if they want to be in direct defiance of that. We've not had to take anybody's license yet, but we're prepared to. So yeah, that was a long, a short question, Pam. We talk to each other every day, and we depend upon each other for guidance and to basically make a consensus decision. Many of the things that we're doing now is basically based upon consensus and what is the safest and best decision to make. If we err on the side of being too safe, too conservative, that's okay. I'd rather do that than err to the side of getting loose too quick and seeing some people suffer for it. I have to tell you though, I have 2 kids, and their dad turned 65 this year. So as you know, 65 and above is kind of like that's the high risk, I guess, area in there. So I had to convince my 2 children that yes, I do have to come into work every day. I am an essential person, and that just because I get COVID, if I ever get it, I'm not going to die. It's not a death sentence. So they were worried. I mean, you know, it's funny because I had one in southern Indiana, one northern in Michigan, and they were very concerned that their 65-year-old dad was going to die of coronavirus. So they're much better now than they were then.
So, question from a public safety standpoint: are police and fire runs staying about the same? Have they gone up, gone down?
Much lower on the police side. Much lower on the police side. On the fire side, and when I say fire, I'm really talking about EMS now. Much higher. We've got a lot of flu-like symptoms, and it's been tough on our firefighters because we have firefighters that will go with nearly every ambulance run. Particularly if it's flu-like symptoms, we will send a backup crew in there. They have to all be in gear before they leave, before they go in. So they'll be in all their PPEs before they go in to try to keep them from being exposed. We're better at that now than we were in the first couple of days, now that we have the equipment with us and we're able to respond. But police-wise, we've had a real slowing down of things today because, you know, people are going out. It was tragic what happened, of course, last Thursday. I'll actually be going to the funeral procession tomorrow with Chief Hoffman. But we have seen an uptick, by the way, you asked the question, so I'll give you the complete answer. We have seen an uptick in domestic situations, and that's something that most of us expect that to happen. You're cooped up and inside, and temperatures begin to flare. Haven't had anything real serious yet, but we're constantly wary of that.
This is Pam again. I have a question related to the schools. How much have you been in contact with the schools as far as how next year's school is going to be? If kids are just promoted, is there going to be extra help? Because we know not every kid has online access to learning. Some will be right on track, some will be behind. What kind of discussions have you had?
E-learning is certainly it's a process. Luckily, Lawrence County schools were very well prepared for e-learning, and they had that capacity from K all the way through 12. Honestly, it's easier to do e-learning the older the kids get. If you have children at home, you know that that once they get to a certain age, they can pretty much teach themselves. Teachers have had to adjust to having specific hours, and they can be online to teach as many kids as they can at one time. So there's been some adjustment in there, but right now, I think that they're going to be okay. I would never pretend to tell you that it's just like being in the classroom. It's not. There's certainly going to be some repercussions of not being able to be with a teacher most of the day. There is very much individual attention being paid to kids nowadays. So it's going to be, I don't know what the actual real impact will be, Pam. I do know that Lawrence Township was uniquely prepared to be able to handle this kind of e-learning situation. We've been doing it before, but I don't think any schools are prepared for this length of this amount of e-learning. That's been the tough part about it, is how long will they be able to keep doing it effectively. I saw a great story or a great joke that came out that on the first day of homeschooling, one of the kids got suspended and the other one got a detention or something like that. So that was kind of a funny way to say it. But anyway, I think that parents are learning, how difficult it can be and how much help they can get. My grandchildren are all being taught by teachers. Their moms and dads were former teachers or still teaching. So they're not getting out of anything. So that part, but not everybody has that advantage in there. So I do think that I think they'll be all right. I think that, but I don't think it's not the same.
Any other questions from the assembled masses?
I have a question. This may be a little jumping the gun, but do you have a list or have an idea of when we are able to open things back up? What is there a priority list on how we'll do that? Who will come first? Like, is there a?
Yeah, I can't answer the who first. I have my best guess would be we'll begin to see some opening of specific industries by May the 1st. Now that is dependent upon what numbers we see coming in through the end of April. Remember, we're still only in April the 15th, so got over 2 weeks left. But I do think that if the numbers continue to be supported the way they are, that we'll begin to see some gradual opening. I do think that one of the things that will be expected, that everybody will be wearing masks outside. I think that will be something that will be highly recommended to everybody, even as we open up. I do think that when restaurants begin to be able to serve inside again, they'll be able to serve fewer customers. The tables will be distanced, social distance, to arrange for that. One advantage is as the weather begins to warm, where possible, restaurants will be serving people outside where they have a greater distance in there. But I think what we'll see a lot is that the people who can kind of isolate themselves, even though they come back to work, will be back by the 1st of May or not so long after. For example, I have an executive assistant and a receptionist, and even though they come in the government building, they can kind of keep themselves insulated and isolated for people that come in. So they will probably come back at that point. I got to tell you, I didn't realize how much I depended upon those two until I was without them for quite a while. So I'm anxious to get them back. I spend at least 2.5, 3 hours every morning. This is embarrassing. Answering emails, responding to emails. I mean, I'm sitting in my chair answering emails from people that come in, overnight. And so it's both frustrating, but it's still what we have to come to communicate now is via either this process like this, the Zoom, or teleconferencing, or just email. And so that's the only way we can communicate now. So it requires a lot of sitting down. I hope that my waist doesn't keep expanding. So that's going to be a struggle.
Fortunately, we have a huge park right here in the heart of Lawrence.
And I'll tell you what, I've been over there walking several times, and that park is really being used. It's tough to keep distancing. We go over there, my wife and I go over there about 4:30, and there must be 400 or 500 people over there walking, when we go over there at 4:30. So it's kind of awesome to see people again, but everybody's real cautious. I mean, they're saying that's 6 feet away or whatever. My wife actually got into the mask making business. She's a seamstress anyway. So I believe she has sewn almost 80 masks for people to use in the last couple of weeks. I had her make me one, but it was a little bit too flashy. It had a little too much color in it. So I'm using I have an old fashioned one that I use now outside, but I got her trying to get her to make me one that's just kind of a little bit more manly, let's say.
Well, you are the mayor. You are allowed to be flashy.
Yeah. This is pretty flashy stuff. I've never try to imagine what your 7 or 8 year old granddaughter be wearing for a dress or something like that. And that's kind of what what they were made out of.
Let's have to get you to the youth vote.
Yeah.
All right. There's lots of other people. Anybody else have questions for the mayor while he's here? Questions, concerns, favorite to-go lunch spot?
Oh, my favorite so far, you're going to get me in trouble. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the one that we've been to. How's that sound? We've been to Cafe Audrey's, Fire Thai, we've had pizza from 3 or 4 different places. We've had Sandra's Noodles. We've had Pit Barbecue. We've had Nola. We've had Murphy's Craft House. We've had Fitzgerald's. We've had Fort Bend Pub. Let's see. I think that's about everybody we've had in there. But what I would tell you to do is, if you go to our website and we've got that little Lawrence Eats section in there, we've checked off every Lawrence Eats that we've gone to. Now we're starting on our second go around now. So, and by the way, it's not easy to lose weight when you're ordering out all the time. Just so everybody.
And I assume that when people go out, you want them to tag the facility with the hashtag Why I Love Lawrence.
Absolutely, absolutely. How many of you seen our new billboards about stay in the course and stay positive on our message? There'll be another PSA coming out next week, and which will just basically, it'll be a message of encouragement how things are going. But we've had a lot of very positive response to our billboards about we'll get through this together. And I think that's the one thing that I want to send out, that message to all of us, because if you're like me, there are times when it becomes a little bit overwhelming. When trying to get everything done and to do it by yourself or to do it in a small group. But you got to understand that we will get through this together, and we're all going through. And in one sense, misery loves company. So in some sense, we're all experiencing a bit of misery right now. But I can see, I'm like the governor on last week. He said, I can begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And trust me, when we get through this, we will be looking back at this many years from now and saying, do you remember that time, when we were going through this crisis in there? So I do think it's something. I know that I felt really bad last week because my 8-year-old granddaughter, she's my oldest, she loves school. And when she learned that school was shut down through the end of the year, she really broke down and really bothered that she couldn't go back to school. And so you begin to see the impact on everybody when something like that's happened. So you kind of have to try to build her up and so on and that kind of thing. So she's fine, she'll be all right, but she loves school. She doesn't like the fact that she's not going back to school.
Now, question, I know, especially on the restaurant side, a lot of businesses have grand openings, but very quiet closings. Is there anybody that you've heard of or aware of that might not make it through this?
I've heard of one that has closed, Sherwood on Otis Avenue. Mm-hmm. The only one I know of so far. But I'm not sure that they closed down because of the COVID-19. I think they were struggling anyway. Haven't heard of anybody else. I do know that Murphy's closed down for 2 weeks. They're back open again. I do think we'll see some, depending on how long this goes, that we'll see some like rolling closures of restaurants. It might close down for a week or two, restock it, open back up again. But I don't think I haven't seen any permanent closures other than Sherwood.
Okay.
I do think that we're beginning to see some of the stimulus checks coming in. Small business. The only thing I can tell you is hang in there. It's a difficult process filling out, and I would tell you to be sure and hire the right banker to fill out your forms for you. That's key to getting it done and getting it in time. I think as long as you kind of slow yourself down and follow yourself through, should be okay. We just last week contracted with GCMC, and they're a company that has basically we've hired to take care of all of our FEMA claims. The FEMA claims are going to be dramatic. I mean, they're nationwide, and never will we have ever had this number of claims. So we hired the same people, actually, believe it or not, that Governor Holcomb has hired for Indiana to do for Lawrence. Our responsibility is to, I've told all my department heads to keep track of any conceivable expense that COVID-19 has had on you or your department. And then when we're done, we will make that claim and then get our reimbursement at some point. So we're a little bit ahead of the game in that respect. We did get out there. I had some friends in high places, so to speak, who got connected with this GCMC. We talked with them and, of course, hired them the following day, and it was approved last Thursday at the Board of Public Works. So it'll be some time before we can actually turn in all those claims, but we feel pretty good about being reimbursed for the claims we've had. We've had a lot of claims on the EMS side, on ambulance and fire. A lot of people that we've transported just can't pay, and so we'll have a lot of reimbursement in that way. We haven't had a whole lot of real infrastructure concerns on COVID-19. That really we haven't had much there. We've had a couple of water main breaks, but pretty normal that way. That wasn't a COVID-19 cause. We have seen, I think the biggest thing that we've seen is a dramatic reduction in, I filled up with gas almost 3 weeks ago. Still got half a tank in my truck. So, I live 4 miles from work, so, I'm not burning up very much gas out there. I will say one thing I will not miss is that I won't miss the traffic in the morning. If you haven't already, I would recommend you get up about 7:30 and drive around. And it really is like a ghost town out there. I mean, there's nobody on the roads. How many of you are familiar with 79th Street? Trying to pull out 79th Street?
Yeah.
Being able to pull out there and pull and turn left on that road. I mean, with ease nowadays, and that's unheard of. So, although actually I'll trade the traffic for people coming back into work.
Amen.
Hey, Mayor, this is Tom Crouch.
Hey,
What
Tom.
are they going to be doing on 79th? Are they starting a new bridge?
They're going to be resurfacing the bridge. They're going to be shutting down. It'll be down to 1 lane at a time. It looks like it's going to be about a 4 to 5 month project. And let's keep our fingers crossed that that's the first step toward creating 4 lanes all the way out to Oleo Road. I choose to believe that's one of the things that's why they're doing that. No, but yeah, it'll be it'll always be open, but it'll be trafficy there for a while because they'll be shutting it down to 1 lane with a stoplight for most of the project. But it'll be a complete resurfacing.
But no expansion of the bridge to 4 lanes.
Not yet. That'll be a DPW and NDOT project, by the way. So I have seen plans for the future, and the plans include a 4-lane expansion all the way from 79th Street at Fall Creek all the way out to Oleo Road in Hancock.
Wow.
So I think that when they get ready to do it, this bridge will be the fifth. Resurfacing is the first step of that. When they get ready to go 4 lanes across Fall Creek, they'll probably do the same thing. They'll keep 1 lane on each side of it to get the other bridge built, and then take it all the way out. If you'll notice as you drive up the hill, so actually you'll see how they move back the power lines on either side. So they've got the right of way already purchased. So that'll be a very expensive. Like I said, that'll be an NDOT project.
Good, we need it.
We sure do.
Is there anything we can do to support Breonna, Lease, IMPD, and her family, or?
Well, there is if you go to the FOP website, they've been, as you would expect, there are people trying to scam people for Breonna Lease. There is, if you go to the FOP site, they'll take you to the right place to donate money or donate to the family. As I said earlier, I'm actually going to be going with Chief Hoffman to the funeral procession. There's nobody allowed at the funeral except for the family. So I'll be in the procession tomorrow. Just a tragic event. I don't know how many of you know about it, but she was shot through the door with a pistol that shot the high-powered rifle bullets. So that's why she was killed. She had followed all the rules. The door wasn't even open yet, and he fired through the door. And So she was killed instantly.
Yeah. It just seems like so many of our deaths have been our best and our brightest, whether it be an LN kid or just a shame.
Yeah, I know, and there's no way to explain it or to. I was with Dave and several of our officers, and when when an officer is killed, everybody feels it, whether you're IMPD or LPD. And
Right.
Tom, LPD and IMPD we work very closely together. So it was a very, very tough night. And Dave Hoffman actually comes from IMPD. He knew Breanne. I mean, it was tough on him too. So we talked quite a while, and tomorrow. During the procession will just be he and I in his car, and I'm assuming that will be a good time for Dave to talk, and that's what I'll be there for. I did not know her personally, but I'm very close with Dave Hoffman, so it'll be good for me too.
Well, and I appreciate you supporting IMPD by being there.
Of course, I'm not sure. You've noticed we've had our flag at half staff. And I don't know whether we'll do that through the burial or if we'll do it through the end of the month. I'll talk with Mayor Hogsett before we make a decision on that.
Good. Well, thanks for doing that.
Absolutely.
All right, Mayor. Well, we were signed up for a 40-minute program here, and we're coming up on the end of that 40 minutes. So I wanted to thank you on behalf of the Greater Lawrence Chamber and the citizens of Lawrence for joining us and having a little Wednesday afternoon chat.
Well, Brad, before I go, I want to thank you. You have really stepped up. I've been following you. You probably don't know, but I've been following you on your communications. And those of Brad has really stepped up, and the chamber is playing a major role in not only the city of Lawrence, but throughout Lawrence Township. So, Brad, I want to thank you for that. You have not just been sitting back there and taking the month off. I'll tell you that.
Thank you, Mayor. Feels like it. So for those of you who are on this conference, next Wednesday, we are going to have State Senator John Ruckelshaus, who's got the western portion of Lawrence Township as part of his district. He's going to be joining us. And as I said last week, we're going to continue to try to do these every Wednesday afternoon. So just kind of make this a calendar appointment. And I'm sure we'll have the mayor back here again sometime early in the summer. And otherwise be looking for a couple of announcements as far as car shows and concerts that might be happening, COVID or no COVID. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Brad.